Hey, it's Jack, no K, Jack in the attic. I'm here for another project update. I've had a lot going on. So before we talk about things I'm working on, I have to acknowledge that I'm wearing a head to toe, almost toe, I'm not wearing hand knit socks, but I'm wearing a head to mid calf. I'm wearing a fully hand knit outfit. Again, head to mid calf, everything but socks. I tried to film a little outfit check. I don't know how silly it's gonna end up, so it may or may not make it into the video. Okay, fit check, vertical style. I have the sleeves from a made-up imagined pattern, the Pottery Slipover, and the cotton culottes, and the Riverdale Southside Serpent socks. But you've seen all of these pieces before. I have the sleeves, I have the Pottery Slipover, and I have the pants. I also have a little bandana on my head. This hairdo, when you see this hairdo come out, please know that it means my hair is exceptionally dirty and I don't want to do anything about it. So the thing I'm going to talk about first, because it's the thing I want to work on during this video, is the Hilja dress. I have very little to say about it because I've made basically no progress since you saw it last. I brought this to Queer Knitting Night at Yarn Social on Tuesday, and I didn't realize that I barely brought any yarn, so I worked on it for like 10 minutes and then ran out of yarn, and that was okay because I didn't want to stay the whole time anyway. I'm old and I like to get home before 8 p.m. So basically I would love to join a new ball right now and knit while I talk to you, because I haven't gotten a chance to work on this one very much at all, and it's so mindless that this is the right time. So this is Drops Cotton Merino. This is, I think, ball 3. I think it's ball 3. It might be 4. I would have to check my Ziploc bags full of yarn and count how many are left, because I started with 16 of the same dye lot. When I join a new ball, I always tie the two ends in a little bow just so they don't unravel, or those two stitches don't get super loose and weird. I don't know if there's a better way to do that. If you do it a different way, let me know. So after this, I should actually be keeping track of the time. After this, and quite soon, I'm going to be heading to Scraps KC to meet a friend there. Scraps is like a second-hand craft supply store that I love. If I get anything, I will hop back on here and show you. I'm still opposed to the idea of showing like big hauls of items and influencing people to buy things, but if I can influence you to find and visit and support your local secondhand craft supply store, if you have one, if I can influence you to do that, that'd be awesome. I'll do that. I'll do that all day. Also, while I'm out, I'm gonna get a couple pictures of the 6 feet under scarf because it is done, and technically the pictures and all the information and stuff was due yesterday, but that was kind of a flexible date, and it turns out almost everyone needs this like singular extra day to get it done, so that is fine with me. I do wish my shoulder hadn't exploded, then I would have had it done earlier. Last weekend was much sunnier than it is now. It is particularly gray and overcast today, which I love. And honestly, this is the nice, soft, diffused lighting for pictures anyway, so. Let me show you the scarf since it's done. I'm stalling because my hands are going and I'm on a roll and I don't want to stop knitting. Okay, I'll show you the scarf. Okay, here it is. It's the 6 feet under scarf by Nessa's Knots. Pattern will be coming out soon. What you didn't see is that I added the border and the tassels. They're a little scrungled right now. But yeah, I'm very pleased with it. Mine ended up very long. I didn't even make it as long as I was planning, and it's very long. When I put it on without wrapping it around at all, it goes down to my knees. So quite long. I did make mine out of cotton yarn, so it's quite structured. I knew it was going to be like that. My plan for this is actually not to use it as a scarf, but more as a table runner for like a low shelf that I use as a side table. I think it's going to be perfect for that. And we've talked about how much I enjoy this particular cotton yarn. It is very structured just because it's cotton, but it is very soft. It's the K&C cotton from Joann. I don't want to think about Joann. I'm sad. I do want to talk about Joann for a moment though, because I got more information in the comments of my last video from an actual Joann employee. So let me pull that comment up. Okay, so I had mentioned not being quite sure what the timeline was because I'd heard different dates. Basically, Joann has until February 15th to get bids for buyout. So far, there are 3 big contenders, all of which are liquidators. The scary one is the Gordon brothers. They want to shut everything down and move on, where the other 2 want to buy part of the debt/store and give a percentage to the Gordon brothers. This would mean a lot of stores closing down, but Joann would still be around for this foreseeable future. So it seems to be the hope that one of the other 2 companies gets it and some stores do stick around. So thank you to this commenter. I wish I could pronounce your name. It's Ghealai. Thank you for providing that extra information and context. I really, really hope it's that latter option. Oh, and the March 15th date is when things will be set in motion. So we have February 15th for bids, March 15th for action. And I did pin that comment under my last project update video, so you can go see the whole thing. So the other thing I'm working on, and this is once again where I have to kick my sister out of the video. I'm going to talk about your birthday present. Are you gone? Okay, so I did, because my shoulder is cooperating again, I did cast on what is going to be a cropped version of my X-stitch cardigan. So far it's going quite well. I think the majority of the body done. I need to add sleeves and ribbing and buttonholes and all of that, so it's by no means like nearly done, but I have a couple of weeks left to work on it. But here is what I have with that so far. I'm gonna put the knitting down again, and I'm gonna grab it, and I'm gonna show you, and I'm gonna stop doing what here I go. Okay, the way I store crochet projects as I'm working on them is in a ball. Crumbled up in a ball. Crumbled is not the right word. Crumpled, maybe, not crumbled. So it's not going to look like much of anything. Oh, I definitely lied when I said I had most of the body done because I haven't done the back at all. What was I talking about? So this is the side front. This is going to be another side front, and then I'll add the back on the back. And then sleeves. This is from like 2 evenings of work though, so I feel okay about having enough time to get this done. So yeah, not too terribly much to show. I do love the X stitch. It's not the fastest crochet stitch in the world, but it takes up so much space that I think it sort of counteracts that. Like each individual stitch feels very slow, but then I have all of this already done. So this is jazz. This is not, it's barely very loosely based on the pattern that I've linked it in like 3 videos already. I'll link it again. Very soon after finishing this scarf, I was able to cast on for my next pattern test, which is actually my first knit pattern test. I have tested like somewhere between 10 and 15 crochet patterns, but I've never tested a knit pattern. So this is the Luna Moth Shawl by Knitting Nakabi. I have 2 swatches that are going to show the texture a lot better than my actual current work in progress because it's all scrunched up on the needles. I will show you the actual project and the swatch. So this is the caterpillar stitch, which I think is so cute. Like, what a perfect name. So the main body of the shawl is all this stitch. And I already said I was gonna work on learning more texture techniques, and this is perfect. I have another tighter incorrect swatch here. I do usually keep my swatches and they just sort of float around my apartment and turn into coasters. I guess that's good to have if things end up needing repairs, or I mean, even if I get to the end and I don't have enough yarn. Good to have. I do wonder what other people do with their swatches. I'm assuming unraveling them and using them in the project, but I don't know. I think the yarn requirements and patterns usually include swatching, right? So you shouldn't need it necessarily for the project. I don't know. Interested to see how everyone else handles that. So the shawl itself, I'm not too terribly far along yet. So here's where I'm at. You can see the caterpillars. And this center section, so it's supposed to look like a moth. So the center section, and then there's going to be a couple of sections along the body, and then the ribbing at the end, all has this very fuzzy yarn held double with the main yarn. The main yarn I'm using is, it's Knit Picks, I think Hawthorn DK in the color Blackbird Kettle? That all sounds right. I'm pretty sure that's what that is. And then the contrast color I'm using is from Hori Bazaar. It is the softest yarn I have ever touched in my life. And that's saying something because I'm so picky. This is the Cloud Fluff base. I think this is the undyed colorway. I'm actually not positive if there's any dye involved in this at all, but it's, oh, there were different kits made up for this particular pattern. Because I already had some of this, I bought a little bit more to finish the project, but I had a little bit of this, but I decided to go ahead and get the recommended contrast piece. The different kits are inspired by different moths. I, of course, went with the goth moth inspiration. So this Cloud Fluff, delightful. The content of this, I don't remember, so I'm looking it up. Ah, okay. It is 53% super baby alpaca. We have to talk about what is super baby alpaca, because what I'm picturing is definitely not what it is. I know what a baby alpaca is. What is a super baby? Sorry, moving on. 53% super baby alpaca, 34% silk, and 15% cashmere. So it's very soft for a reason. I can't stop squishing it. I'm holding a marshmallow. And this yarn dyer is, I think, in Michigan, so it came very quickly to me in the Midwest. I don't know where you are. But yeah, this pattern is very fun so far because it is different enough in every section that you don't get bored of doing the same stitch over and over. It's the type of pattern where I can't personally quite memorize everything, so I can't just start knitting and be off and on my way, but I can sort of check in at the beginning of every row and figure out what I need to be doing and go from there. I really get sort of frustrated with a pattern that I have to kind of babysit. Like I have to look at the pattern for every stitch. That is not quite for me. So this is a nice medium ground where I'm not bored, but I'm not babysitting. I mentioned that I would be mostly working on 2 large long-term projects, and that is the second one. The first one is still the Hilja Dress. In a roundabout kind of way, this has reminded me, because the Hilja Dress is made with Drops Cotton Merino. I made my Salty Day sweater with Drops Cotton Merino. I ran into a nasty dye lot issue that was my own fault. Last weekend, I finally fixed it. So I got a bunch of fabric dye. I used about double what it recommends because every time I use black fabric dye, it ends up dark purple. So twice as much black and then a splash of neon green has been my most successful recipe so far. And I dyed the Salty Day sweater and the pants, because if you remember, the pants had like very uneven chunks of like a much lighter black on one leg and then a smaller chunk on the other. So wildly different, just like it looked kind of terrible. That's fixed too. I'm wearing those, so just believe me. But for this Salty Day sweater, you may remember it was an issue halfway through the bottom ribbing. Not the very bottom ribbing, but there's a long ribbing section after the chart with all the eyelets and the diamond pattern. It was inside out. I wore this inside out to work the other day also. So there used to be a very stark line. You can see a little bit of a line still right about here, but it is so much better. When I wear it, I can't tell at all. I'm so pleased with how this worked out. It's so much more wearable to me now. I'm trying not to have this problem anymore. I'm trying to be better about buying enough yarn in the first place so I don't run into dye lot issues, and if I have to, alternating skeins so that it's not just a stark color change. Anyway, extremely relieved that this worked. I know that the dye will eventually fade, but now I know I can redo it, and it's like a $3 project to fix it. It's fine. I'll do that for the rest of my life if I have to. The last thing I'm actually working on at the moment is spinning more of that green yarn. It's called Cloverfield. Hold on. Oh, it doesn't actually say who it's by. Hold on. Maybe it's on the other side. Divine Dye Works. I got this on Etsy. Yep. I have this much left. The hank of yarn I showed in my last project update video was half this and half black with the nylon rainbow stuff in it. That one. I hadn't spun since last year. I hadn't spun since New Year's Eve. And about January 21st or around there, I picked it back up and I immediately started spinning lace weight. I've never been able to do that. This is maybe my 6th spin ever. It's getting kind of less consistent as I go on. Last night I spun for, I think, too long and I kind of lost my consistency, and so now it's more of like fingering weight, which is fine. This is still a big improvement for me. Like, can you even see that? Neither can I. I can't because it's so teeny tiny, and wow, I'm a professional. No, but for a beginner spinner, I feel very good about this. I've wanted to try chain plying ever since I figured out what it actually means, so this might be the one that I do that with. This is already not going to match the last hank I spun with this fiber, so it's gonna end up being something else. If it's chain plied, maybe the like 3 plies will end up matching closer to the width of the 2 ply in that other skein, hank, whatever. I don't know. So I figured out the best way for me to proceed with this is to spin like 10 minutes every night. That's keeping me in practice, and that's when I'm the most consistent, is when I do it for just a little bit of time. And then anything after like 20 minutes, I really just sort of fall off. So that's what I'm working on. This is my like end of the night project. And speaking of spinning, I did buy a few more braids. I bought some BFL. I've heard that's easier to spin, but still pretty soft. So this is sort of aspirational because this braid is so lovely. I don't want to spin it until I know I can do it well. And I have it here in a Ziploc bag. It didn't come in anything resealable, so I'm just I use these gallon bags for anything like wool that comes not packaged. I just like to keep it kind of airtight. This braid is from Fat Cat Knits, who I recently followed on Instagram, and I accidentally saw not just this colorway, but this exact braid on their Instagram. So this is Peat Bog, and how perfect. Like how perfect. The greens, it's so swampy. And the brown and black, because I've been wanting to mix brown and black. I saw this and I thought about it for weeks, and I eventually purchased it, and I have no regrets. It is quite soft. I tend to not think that this like raw fiber is very soft, but it feels pretty nice. I think it's gonna work up into a pretty soft yarn. So I'm so excited about this, and I should not be, because I'm not spinning this anytime soon. I'm gonna get through all of that green and black before I even touch this, and I may have an e-spinner by then, I don't know. This is months off. So that's a very long-term goal. Because it is officially February, it's time to talk about Finish It February, Frog It February, Fix It February, all of those things. I talked about it a little bit. That's my favorite phrase, is I talked about it a little bit in a previous video. I say that quite a bit, but I did talk about it in a previous video. At that point, I had several smaller projects in the works, and I thought I was really going to need to focus on finishing those. However, they're kind of mostly finished. I am working on several things, but the thing for my sister will obviously be finished in time to gift, and that's before February's over. So I will finish that in February. The shawl and the Hilja dress, not a chance, not happening in February. I will be working on them in February. I think the only thing I have that could even apply to Finish It, Fix It, Frog It February would be my Halloween socks that I haven't even shown you because the progress has been so minimal. I think I want to frog that, and I want to start over with a different pattern. It turns out I hate turning a heel. I don't like it. I don't want to do it. So when I get to heel time, I give up. I found a sock pattern different than any sock pattern I've ever seen from Easy as Knit, and I did purchase that. So maybe I will frog my existing half sock and cast on this sock and see how that goes. I did also purchase recently at Joann. I had a good coupon. I purchased one of the very small circumference, it's like a 9-inch circular cable needle with the teeny tiny tips. I should have brought it with me, but I will show you next time. For socks, because I don't mind magic loop in general, but it slows me down so much and it makes me feel very discouraged. So I don't know, maybe this will fix me. Maybe if I buy one more product, one more tool, one more piece of kit, maybe it will fix me. So it's time for me to go about my day. If I buy anything cool, I will let you know. Fiji mom. I am back from scraps. I got 3 things. 2 of them are the same. I got some seam binding, 50 cents each, good deal. The other thing I got, I already took out of the package because I'm a little weird about secondhand items. I like to wash them as soon as I possibly can, or put them in like a sealed container. So the other thing I bought was a huge bag of green wooden beads, and I did go ahead and wash them, and I found out that the green runs when it gets wet. So they're in a colander in a paper towel and green dish towel, but here's a bunch of wooden beads. I don't know why. They really called to me and they were $6 for like, this is like a pound of beads. And they sound so nice. Now my hands are green. So what can I say other than supporting your local creative reuse store is fun and cool. Scraps in particular, if you're in the Kansas City area, I don't know why you would be, but just in case, they do a lot of community outreach and they do a lot of local teacher support. They're very cool. Overall, just in general, I think they're a good organization to support. So this is the actual ending of the video for real this time. Cut to previous me doing the outro. Go and live your best yarny life. Take care of your joints, and I will see you next time. Bye.